My plan was to approach some random adults to act as one or more of my parents to gain admission. In hindsight, maybe some of my candidates were somewhat lacking in parental credibility.
And hello, movie lovers. And tonight I'm going to be reviewing this little short film that was sent in to me on Twitter by the director of Ross Munro. He wrote and directed this film and also produced this film, and it's called The MovieGoer. So I'll explain to you what the plot is, but first of all, I need you guys to go on ahead, go over to Good Pods, go over to Apple Podcasts, go over to where you guys get your podcasts from, and tell us what you guys think about Movie Lovers Unite. So with further ado, let's go on ahead. Let's get on with the show. And hello, movie lovers. And like I said, tonight I'm going to be reviewing The MovieGoer. This is actually by Ross Munro. He reached out to me on Twitter because of the fact that he saw that I was reviewing his films for the Holly Shores Film Festival, I believe. So he reached out to me and wanted me to review his short film, The MovieGoer. And what I like about The MovieGoer is this. Number one, you have the nostalgic factor of the 1970s for him because he was actually born within the 1970s. And it explains in his documentary about how passionate he is about film, how much he loves going to the movie theaters as a young kid, sitting down, watching his crush on the big screen for the very first time, and then also, too, getting snuck into the theater to see a rated R film. We've all been there, folks. We all been there. I've been there myself, but in a different circumstance. But we'll get to that in a minute. But here's the thing. The director's crush is actually on Carlita Davis. And to me, this is very relatable because of the fact the very first actress that I actually had a crush on was Salma Hayek in Desperado. And after that, I would watch anything with Salma Hayek in it, including From Dusk Till Dawn. Then you have Desperado. You also have Once Upon a Time in Mexico. The list just goes on. You know what I mean? But for me, that was the person that I would want to go ahead and check out because of the fact that I had a huge crush on Salma Hayek and still do. But here's another thing, though, too. Ross Munro tried doing sports at a young age, which every kid goes through that age process of like, you know what? I think I'm going to try sports out because of the fact that maybe my brother's was into sports. Maybe my dad wants me to do sports. Maybe that's what I need to do. For me, I was actually privileged enough to be where I didn't have to worry about that, and I got to make my own decisions for myself with that. But here's the thing, though. With Ross, though, he was just trying to find his way into his school and stuff like that, trying to figure out what he wanted to do, what he was passionate about, just trying to find himself at a young age. But it seems like he wasn't comfortable with doing sports because his friends were also starting to reach their growth spouts. Sorry about that. And leaving Munro behind. He tried hockey, being from Canada, but his career ended at age 9. That's very young. So sports wasn't for him, or anything like that. And also, too, sports wasn't for me. I loved watching it, but here's the thing. The only sport that I actually played as a kid was baseball. And baseball was my huge passion at that time, and still is today. But as far as playing it every day and stuff like that, no, that was not for me at all. But, and then, of course, him being from Canada, he loves hockey, and I love hockey. I'm a Bruins fan. Go Bruins. But his career also, like I said, it ended at age 9. And then, of course, sports wasn't for him. So guess what winded up being his niche? His niche was actually movies. And that's actually my go-to as well. Because to me, movies is like going into my comfort place. It's going into my sanctuary. It's a place where I can forget about something that's going on around me. And also, too, you can surround yourself with people that you never met before and had shared experience with them. Also, too, you get to geek out over certain stuff in the movies and stuff like that. So, it's just awesome to be able to capture that, whenever you're looking at the stuff that how Ross is passionate about movies, how he found his way into that whole entire atmosphere of being sucked into the movies. And, ever since I started going to the movie theaters, and matter of fact, my very first movie was Batman 1988 or 89. But either way it goes, that was my first movie. And after that, I didn't stop going to the movie theaters. And one thing I was privileged enough was the fact that, I didn't have to worry about being snuck into an R-rated film or anything like that. My mom was okay with me going to R-rated movies as long as she was there with me. So, that never was a real problem for me at all. But that's just me. But for Ross, though, he was also he also had to go through some other things before he got to the theater. For example, waiting for his allowance money from his father. Then also too, you also had this whole entire deal where he had to wait for his dad to drive him, the transportation. You also had to wait for the bus. There's a number of things that you have to go through as a kid to get to where you want to be because you cannot drive. And that's exactly what Ross had to go through the waiting stages of his father for his allowance money, and also too for the bus fare. Also, at that time in the 1970s, you can actually get away with pretty much anything whenever you're looking at concession stand prices and things like that, because you can buy pretty much anything for $1. Matter of fact, that was a Canadian dollar he had, I believe. But another thing I want to mention is this. I wish I was born in the 1970s or 1975 era, because Jaws is hands down one of my favorite movies, but I'll stick with 1985 because of the fact that we have Back to the Future. But anyways, Ross was waiting for his crush on the screen, and there was a catch, of course. It was R-rated, and so getting into the theater was actually hard for him because he was under the age and would try and get people to sneak him in. And like I said, for me, the only time that I snuck into an R-rated film was actually when I was with my aunt and uncle, who snuck me in to go see American Pie, because at that time my mom and dad were actually in Boston because we were actually traveling back down to Mississippi so the way we can get our stuff back. So they were up north. I was down here. So my aunt and uncle decided to go on ahead and take me to go see American Pie. And as a matter of fact, I remember the talk that we had on the ride over to the theater. Because remember, I'm your mom. I'm your dad, and this is your mom. Now repeat after me. Who's that? That's my mom. Who are you? Who am I? Your dad. Exactly. And I got to see American Pie for the very first time in theaters, and it was hilarious to see that for the very first time. But I never had that experience of getting somebody off the street like Ross did. You had to go through X amount of people to see if they'll actually... It's like buying alcohol at a young age, right? Where you have to try and pick the right person that would get you in that spotlight into the theater and be able to have your popcorn and enjoy it and watch your crush. And unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. But with this time go around and everything, it does wind up working out. For Ross, of course, he winds up going into the theater. But I want to talk about this for a minute before I go deeper into my notes, is this. I like what Ross did here with the artwork, because basically what he's doing is using an animated cartoon version of himself as a 10-year-old kid, walking the streets, going to the movie theaters, riding on a bus, and then also too having his grown self reflect back onto the things that he did as a kid. And I like that. I like the animation style in it. I thought it was really fun. I thought this short film was a lot of fun. I was geeking out the whole entire time because it reminisced to me as a person that loves going to the movie theaters, of course, reviewing movies, watching movies, and stuff like that. And this is like a love letter to people who love movies, which is also why it's called The Moviegoer, because I love going to the movies. But, okay, so now we're getting into the meat of this. And this is what I love. The previews, he actually has previews of with this going on, where you actually have the 9-year-old version of himself, who in cartoon format, watching a Grindhouse version of the previews. And the previews is called the Scandinavian Airlines. And it's a bit, but it works. And it makes me crack up watching this because of the fact I was like, you know what? You're doing Grindhouse. And I love the look and authenticness of a Grindhouse movie and stuff like that. It feels dirty, but also too, it may not feel like it's dirty or anything like that too, because of the way it's filmed. But it's very entertaining on how you actually look at it. And of course, Quentin Tarantino did a Grindhouse movie. You have Machete Kills. You also have all those other things. But also, too, if you're into Quentin Tarantino and if you're into the Black Keys, I recommend checking out Holland for You, and check out the music video, because it's very reminiscent to how Quentin Tarantino was actually advertising Grindhouse. But also, too, it's very reminiscent to this movie because of the way that he's playing off the narrative with the Grindhouse kind of deal. And matter of fact, you actually have Annie Frid Free. Annie Frid Free. I believe that's how you say it. I might be mispronouncing it. But here's the thing. She's free from sexual hangups and ready to fluff your pillows anywhere, anytime. which I cracked up laughing at that. And then you have Agnetha, who is the looking for the perfect lover, take her on that long haul flight. So I love that how he does that. This movie, like I said, I was just eating this up with that bit, and the bit actually works, and it doesn't fall flat on his face. It's very entertaining. I was entertained from start to finish with this documentary. Then you get into this other thing where after he leaves the theater, of course, he goes back to his home, and of course, he's watched this movie, this movie that he's going to go see the woman that he has his crush on over about 10 times. As a matter of fact, it's about roller derby and things like that. So I thought that it's very reminiscent to us, where we don't want to go home right away. We want to go back and rewatch this movie. But back then, you can rewatch this movie as many times as you probably can, and nobody would bat an eye. But now you have reserved seating, you have all this other stuff, and also, too, some movies are more popular than the others, so therefore you're not going to be able to do that unless you buy a ticket or pre-order another ticket while you're watching the movie that you're previously watching for that same theater. So therefore you can't really do that unless you go to this little small theater, say, mom and pop's own. But still, he goes back home, and then it cuts into this other thing about how his father got Ross his very first camera to film movies. And basically, this is like the beginner's guide to actually filming movies. Because who never had a camcorder where they wanted to be a director and have their actors and actresses acting out stuff that they wrote on paper? To me, this is a very clever movie. I really enjoy this documentary film. As a matter of fact, the very first movie they ever directed was actually Furious Fists. So that's a little bit of information for the very first movie that he wrote and directed and stuff and starred as himself. But I have to say, this movie is smart. It's witty. It makes me laugh. It makes me gig. I'm not gonna lie. It actually makes me giggly inside. So with that being said, guys, tell me what you guys think about the Moviegoer. If you happen to see it, I don't know if it's going to be available anytime soon or anything like that, but don't forget to smash that like button. Don't forget to comment below. And always, until next time, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I can't wait to do this again. And bye-bye.